March 3rd, 2026. Well, we're now entering the fourth day of the war with Iran, Operation Epic Fury, and the parallel operation by Israel, Roaring Lion, like that one. Um, and as I said in my immediately, I had two previous videos where one was a pre-war thing on the edge of war, where I was being hopeful that we could avoid this and negotiate something, and very nervous about what the consequences will be of going into this, which I am. And the next one, when it got going, and had a pretty good first day, and I said, well, basically at this point, there's no choice but to follow through. It's too late to quit. It's sort of like you're on an airplane, and it's too late to get off. It's heading down the runway. You can't get off now. You're on the way, and this is where we are now. If the United States were to fail in this operation, it would be an absolute catastrophe, not just for the United States, but for the world as a whole. It's just that simple. Once you start something like this, you can't just back away. This is not quite like just leaving Afghanistan and letting all the women being beaten. This is a little bit more significant than that, or Vietnam with a lot of boat people, because what this is it carries a significant matter of the energy producing part of the world. And remember, we're already in a position where we're trying to not take any Russian oil, right? We have a little bit of Venezuelan oil we've gained, but not that much. And it'll be a long time to improve that production. We've done pretty good on our home production, of course, but the point is, the alternate energies are way off. So this is what we have to do for the moment. So, and obviously, as you can see from the conflict so far, the Iranians are attacking the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Bahrain, and Qatar, and so forth. Okay, so this is why we're kind of committed here now. And of course, Israel. And we could talk about Israel from another point of view, and they have a significant part in this game as well, so to speak. So, anyway, that's kind of the thing. Fundamentally, this conflict in its current phase fundamentally started on October the 7th, 2023, when the Hamas, being backed and supported and funded and aided by the Iranians, managed to pull off a dastardly attack on Israel, and then led to the various conflicts that occurred throughout Gaza, and then with Hezbollah, and then with the Houthis, all of whom are surrogates of Iran. And so we've been through all that now. But now this is the big one. What actually apparently has led to this is a decision on the part of the Trump administration and Israel that the negotiations with Iran were futile. That essentially, although they would make encouraging statements, and certain people I do follow who I think have gone completely off the rails here on this, such as on Judge Napolitano and Daniel Davis, I think missed the point that they were just playing games with us. That's the conclusion they came to. And all we can do is use the intelligence they have. If they've got the intelligence to do what we're doing in this war, they probably have a good read on that as well. So, given that situation, the other thing is, although there have been a lot of statements and everybody gets upset when everything isn't perfectly true, right? If you're a realist political person like I am, I don't expect perfectly true. This is not Sunday school, folks. This is international geopolitics. All right. So the real truth of the whole operation last summer and Midnight Hammer, I think, was that although we did destroy a lot of the production capability, they actually had produced a significant quantity of 60% enriched uranium-233, which is just a few steps away from the 93+ % you need for the nuclear weapons. Okay. And apparently that wasn't lost in these attacks. Maybe it had been stored somewhere else after they made it. Maybe they didn't leave it down there, or maybe they did, but it was in containers that still withstood the explosions and then could be excavated. There was a lot of discussion about the activities that were going on at that site, And so, at any rate, they have it. And the reason why you can't allow any refinement at this point is, how do you, with national technical means, determine what they're doing, whether refining natural uranium into 3 to 4% enriched for a reactor, or they're taking the 60% up to 90-something %. You just can't tell. If you remember the Stuxnet episode back during the early Obama years, and the prosecution of General Cartwright for leaking information to the media, where he was trying to clarify what went on with the Stuxnet virus, it was revealed also that we have national technical means from, I guess, our satellites to pick up the signature of these high frequency spinning centrifuges, and so we can tell whether they're operating and how many are operating and where they're located, things like that. And so that gives us a position where you'd have to have a very rigorous inspection regime, and the Iranians have been very resistant to that for their own reasons, of course, but also because that gives us no visibility. I think that plus the mass production of a new missiles that were being produced at a fairly high rate and probably growing, and newer models that were even more effective. And so ultimately, I think the decision was that it was kind of now or never. I mean, sometime. My preference might have been could we wait to after the fall election to do it? Something about a year from now, would that be not a better time? Well, maybe. But then again, if the Democrats get one branch of the House, it might not be a better time, if you see what I mean. So anyhow, that's kind of my read on why the attack began, and then we can get into kind of the details a little bit more here. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, or click the bell for notifications. Or also you can follow these on Rumble as well. Okay, so that's kind of the situation here we got. As to how the war will go and how long it will go, it may well be into either the both sides run out of ammunition, basically. I mean, there's so many different targets to hit, and effectively, I think we're involved in what I would almost say a deindustrialization campaign against Iran. Not a pretty thing, folks. Not a pretty thing. But what else can you do? There are two aspects of this. In the Roaring Lion part, there's overlap in the target sets, but Roaring Lion has emphasized the regime change concepts more. I think we've, in the U.S. Air Force and Navy, have emphasized the destruction of their military potential more. Not to say that there hasn't been crossover, but the question is, has Israel gone a little too far on decapitation? Because one problem in a conflict is, do you have anybody left to negotiate with to stop it at some point? I mean, as I pointed, at the end of World War II, I mean, even though Hitler was dead and some of his top lieutenants either dead or fleeing or hiding, there was still the German General Staff, and they were the people we were able to sort of negotiate in the sense of accept our unconditional surrender terms, which they signed to surrender, right? Well, who would surrender? Trump was saying, well, let's surrender or else. Surrender to who? I mean, surrender to the people that are the future protesters that are going to come and tear you to pieces. They're armed people. They're not going to surrender. They're fanatical anyhow. So my point is, I don't think there's anything to surrender to. And I don't know who you negotiate with. Somebody we never heard of 3 or 4 levels down might survive. And if the person shows up and says, I'm now in charge, won't he be killed immediately as well with the way things are going? Or alternatively, if not, I mean, will the person have enough clout to tell the IRGC and to quit firing missiles? Well, if you see what I'm trying to get at, the last Ayatollah probably gave a standing order in the event that, we're attacked and we're decapitated, execute this war plan, sort of like a nuclear war only without the nukes, basically, which is another problem. And it would be limited nuclear war. How do you end the thing once the missiles start flying? Once attack codes have been released, it becomes very difficult, and the thing moves even faster. This one at least is operating over the days and weeks, not over the simple minutes. And so the result is, I don't know. I'm skeptical that anybody can surrender at this point. Not only that, anybody that wants to probably fears assassination. They'll immediately be seen by the IRGC hardliners as a traitor. So, so I think that's why we're kind of in a quite a bit of a long battle here. And there is a real issue of munitions. It turns out a lot of things we've been hearing on certain podcasts apparently are not true. Apparently, the worst penetration rate the Iranians ever achieved was 20% against the Israeli defenses, and and then they'd fallen to 14, and now they're down to about 10. However, if the Iranians have more attack missiles than Israel has interceptors, when they run out, their intercept rate will be penetration rate will be 100% or 100%, times the reliability. In other words, so in other words, that's only true as long as your systems are up and firing. And for the moment, I would say that this has been a milder counterattack in terms of Israel than the one in last June. I still hold to that, even though some since the last video, some pretty provocative penetrations have occurred, but not on the same scale as it was last June. But instead, the Iranians have really spread their attack out, and they're literally hitting everybody, particularly the Gulf states. They even try to fire at Cyprus. I mean, so they're definitely not making any friends here. And although technically, I guess the Straits of Hormuz aren't shut, there's a phenomenon when a war at this intensity is going on, a few attacks have occurred. You don't have to literally blockade it to start. Right now, there's an insurance issue. Are you willing? What would the insurance rate be on a tanker that you sail through there? I mean, what's the probability? What if there's a 1 in 10 chance it gets hit and catches on fire? I mean, you see what I'm saying? That this is a very effectively, it's pretty well blockaded. Plus, certain refineries have been hit. Liquefied natural gas, I think, has been shut down from one country there. So you're going to have an energy shortage. We're already seeing a temporary spike in energy prices, and I'm not going to get into speculation discussions here, but I haven't sold yet, so let's put it that way. But that's not a recommendation. Okay, that's just maybe I'm going to lose, and maybe I don't mind losing on that. If this thing ends and energy flow is good, I might consider myself to be a personal winner, even at a lower price. Sort of a little bet against fate. But at any rate, what I'm saying is, so this is a very serious development here. And what is going to be, I think, tougher, we've had some casualties. I think Daniel Davis is obviously must have cracked due to his experiences in the various wars he's been in. I know it's got to be beyond terrible to have young people that we work with to get killed in various ways. I understand that. But when you're looking at the level of high command and national strategy, you got to look at a bigger picture than that, or you're not really competent for it. Okay, so at any rate, so that's kind of the way that goes. And Trump himself, well, he's hanging in there, and I don't know. We'll see what it does to his poll numbers. I mean, for the moment, it seems like it's a political split. Hakeem Jeffries is going to be one of those worthless people in the political world. I mean, how did they ever pick somebody that asinine? I would think that, at any rate. But anyhow, this is our situation for the moment, that we have to pursue this to some kind of an outcome. How we end it, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're continuing to, since now we apparently have achieved air superiority, we'll attempt to bring in heavier bombers, I guess, and maybe using, dumb bombs now, as they say. In other words, much cheaper to obliterate targets. There's a lot of underground tunnel infrastructures, and we have a limited number, I believe, of the bunker, massive ordnance penetrators. I don't know if that's required for all these, or maybe something a little bit less provocative. But there are penetrator bombs that are not on that scale that could still be used as well. I heard that the B-2 strike really was just doing the 16 Mark 84s. Even that's quite a punch. So anyhow, so that's our kind of our look into that. The conflict will probably continue, and I think again that the issue is, who do you deal with here at the moment? Anybody that pops up that we might like, they'll kill. Anybody that pops up that they might like, we'll kill. So it's hard to negotiate into that environment. And so I think it just goes on until literally the supply of ammunition and munitions runs low on both sides. And I could see an end game which comes where there's we simply pause for a while, and then they fire a few missiles, so we hit them hard for a day or two back, and then they fire a few missiles, and then there's a pause, and it could be sort of like that at the end, maybe, rather than a clear cut, agreement. I mean, they aren't going to be able to get their oil out either. At some point, there's a question of keeping their population from literally going into real deprivation, let's just say. So I think at some point there'll probably have to be some negotiation. I also think that even though we blew up their 11 vessels or whatever, I think a lot of smaller boats could be used to put mines in the Straits of Hormuz, and then if it's sufficiently mined, it's going to require minesweeping operations, and of course the minesweeper boats would become subject to various type of drone attacks if they go out there and try to do their work. So it looks like a ceasefire would be needed sometime, but that's like trying to look to the several pages ahead in the book, you might say, a few chapters ahead. For now, I think it goes on, and I guess we're going to have a war powers debate at some point. But my guess is they won't be able to get it through both Congress. We have a few flip people, You've got Rand Paul will be passing it on the Republican side, and almost all Democrats, and then on the other side, I guess for the moment, it's Fetterman apparently is going to support the war. So, and if it gets to 50-50, we have the VP. So I think that they won't be able to stop it at this point. So anyway, and I don't know that we're talking going a full 60 days here, but again, at some point you may simply go to a pause, and also at some level it might be down to where the Israelis themselves could probably handle what needs to be done going forward, maybe. So anyway, so that's kind of my rundown on the Epic Fury and Roaring Lion at the moment, and the problems we're going to face going forward. So if you like these videos, I hope you can pass it on to other people. I think this is some of the most sensible commentary that I've been hearing here, frankly, and I have some of the downside and some of the upside both in it. I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble as always, and the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for now.